Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nick and Sanjee podcast, where we share our tips and tricks on how to grow a YouTube channel as we ourselves go on that journey. Welcome back, Nick. How are you today?
I'm good. I've almost finished my sugar from last week, so yeah, getting there. How about you?
I'm good too. Yeah, I'm woke up a little bit tired today, but that's okay. Had a buffet meal yesterday. I think that may have contributed to my
Oh,
tiredness.
that
But
sounds good.
yeah, going well. I actually recorded a couple of videos on Friday, which was nice.
Nice.
Tried to set up some batch recording, which went well. I wanted to do 4, but only got 2. But I think that's good enough. It's good enough
Yeah,
for me,
that's still
really.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice work.
it's good. All right, so today we are talking about dealing with the haters, managing negativity, and staying positive online. Which, as content creators, whether you're small or quite large, this is something that you have to continuously deal with. I think to some extent, probably as you get very large, you can probably disconnect a little bit and have someone else manage the comments and the negativity. But I'd say for most people, like 80% of content creators who have to be on the front lines with their own stuff will have to deal with this pretty much for their whole life. So in this episode, Nick and I will go through a few things that we've put together that have really helped us in terms of managing the comments and the reactions that we've had from people as we've posted online. So, Nick, probably as you get ready to share yours, maybe also just touch on what your YouTube channel is about, just so it gives people context. And then maybe you can kick off with the first one.
Yeah, for sure. So my channel is mainly around tech, content creation, videography, do a bit of electric skateboard content. So I do a bit of variety stuff. So that's kind of the context for my content. But I was also really curious to hear from you first of all, like how much negativity you do experience, because I find it's pretty minimal overall. Like I think I was a bit worried early on that I'd get heaps of negative comments, or it'd be like 50% negative, 50% positive, but I found it's maybe like, I don't know, maybe 2%, if that, of my comments are negative. But I'm curious to hear your experience, like in your niche.
Yeah, I'd say I'm similar too. So my niche is personal finance and investing. And in terms of the negative comments, I can put it into a couple of categories. The first one will be when I don't post for a while and people are like, "Hey, so what happened to your little side hustle?" And especially recently when I didn't post in the middle of when the market also happened to be going down or
Right.
sideways, everyone's reacting like, "Oh yeah, there goes all the fake people."
Right.
The second, and I think that's a fair comment. If you're not a professional, you're gonna have to deal with that kind of thing, and if you're not consistent, you're gonna have to deal with that. The second one is probably a self-induced one where I will compare how I performed to, like, my how did my investments perform to some kind of external metric, and immediately people will also jump on that saying you didn't do that in a very technical way. You
Right.
didn't consider this, you didn't consider that. I think there's a certain level of grace that people can give you with that. They can say, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of this, but this is also another way, which is a
Mhm.
great way of giving feedback. But often people will say, like I did a video about how to compare how my share portfolio compared to investing in VAS. And I'm pretty sure the conclusion was I should have just invested in VAS instead of trying to build my own portfolio. And yet people were still quite negative towards it. I thought it'd be fair enough if I had said, oh, I beat VAS, and people were like, yeah, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. So
Yep.
that's what I would say. But yeah, most of the time it's, yep, that's, thank you. I hadn't considered that. That's handy.
Yep. Yep. Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like mine's fairly similar in the sense that most of my negative comments are about technical things, because I do
Mm,
review videos with tech stuff, and so sometimes I have people saying like, this comparison wasn't logical, or it wasn't an apples to apples comparison. Why did you do it like this?
yep.
That type of thing. Or the other big example of negativity that I've received was for my when I shared my opinion on a new Kindle device. I just
Okay.
shared my opinion on it, and I didn't realize how controversial of an opinion it was. And I got heaps of people saying, "Oh, you've never used the device. What are you talking about?" But by and large, the majority of my comments are positive, and so
Yeah.
I think I'll say that up front. If you're worried about negative comments and that's holding you back from starting a YouTube channel, don't let that hold you back, because you'll get majority positive. But
Mm.
in saying that, there is some negativity to deal with, and so the first thing I try to remember when I do receive negative comments, and I heard this from another content creator. I can't remember who it was. I think I've heard it from a few people, but they basically said just try and remember that most people who comment probably are having a bad day. And
Mm.
I kind of think about it in my own context as well. When I want to complain to people or get angry at things, it's often because I'm already in a bad mood, or I'm having a bad day myself. And so, like, if you think about the energy it takes to even write a positive comment, like, or
Mm.
just a neutral comment on a video, like, I don't comment on videos very often, really. Like, it takes a lot of energy for me to actually write a comment. So I think to go the extra mile and write a negative comment, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of someone's probably having a bad day. They're just wanting to take it out on someone. So I try not to take that element personally. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my first perspective on it. How about you, Sanjay?
Yeah, for mine, it is, and I agree, actually, I'm very similar. I rarely do comment on videos, but usually it is quite positive. I think even if I had a negative thought, my initial reaction would be to be more constructive, to say, hey, this is great. Just like people have treated us sometimes is, but I have you considered this or that? Or also just to think maybe it's a completely different context. So my comment may not even be relevant sometimes, something like that.
Yep.
But my big tip is around not reading comments before you go to sleep. Now, I realize in retrospect, I think it's still relevant, but it's not going to stop you from getting negative comments. But one of the dangers of getting a negative comment is someone will share it, you'll read it just before you get to sleep, and then your mind will start thinking through it. And that's just not healthy. So I'm going to read comments. I usually read them around lunchtime. I find is an optimal time to read any comment, positive or negative. If it's too early in the morning, it's sort of similar to reading it at night. Your whole day is messed up. But if
Mm.
it's lunchtime or in the afternoon, or almost like when I'm coming home from work, when I used to work directly in the office, now working at home mainly, still have a corporate job. But if I was working in the office and I was in that time of going on the train or the tram on public transport going home, I found that was a good time because
Mm.
you're almost not even paying that much attention in a
Right.
way. So like how much do people remember of what they did while sitting on public transport? So
Yeah.
I'll sort of read it, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough, and then I'll move on.
Yeah.
And typically the negative ones, I'm actually jumping into another one, but I'll just keep going on a bit of a roll. But typically the negative ones I'll sort of leave and then I'll come back to. But let's jump back to you on the next one, Nick. What's one for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to say just on that as well. I think that's great advice. And even I've noticed this year, I've been trying to set aside just set times per day to reply to comments.
Mm-hmm.
And I was initially doing it in the morning, but I think I found it could get a bit distracting, especially if there's a negative one. Like, it sort of, puts your mood out, and it makes you feel like, oh,
Yep.
why am I doing this? And sort of,
Yep.
yeah, it can affect the rest of your day. So I've started leaving it to sort of the end of the day. Um, so then I finish my work, I can focus and get through the comments. Not that they're
Mm.
usually negative, but yeah. So the next thing that I try and remember when I do encounter negative comments is to focus on the positive things, and it always kind of makes me laugh a little bit, like when I do get negative comments, because they're actually helping my video, but with in terms of engagement and the algorithm,
Yes.
because the more comments you get on your video, the better. That it's sending signals to YouTube that it's an engaging video. So
Yep.
they're actually doing you a favor by leaving a comment. So that's a positive. That's kind of something I try and just remind myself of. But also, I think it can be a good opportunity to gain some sort of feedback. Like,
Yes.
often it can be masked by, like, being a bit too personal, or just overly negative. But I think there can be elements of truth to it, and if you can sort of pull out the truth in the in the negativity, then I think that can be a positive thing. Like, for example, I recently got a comment from a guy, and he said, "Oh, you should really get some voice coaching because like you're really boring to listen to." I was just like,
Wow.
it was pretty like personal, a bit of a personal attack. But I was like, I hear what he's saying, because I do tend to be a bit monotonal, and I can be a little bit boring, and so that's something I'm actively trying to work on. So it was a good reminder. I was like, oh yeah,
Okay.
I should make sure I'm talking to the camera like it's a person and not just delivering a script. So yeah, it's like it's a bit of a balancing act, trying to not take it personally and take the real feedback. But yeah, I think there can be positive reminders and stuff like that in the negativity. So yeah.
I was thinking we should have also had a segment on like some examples of ones that we've had, because that's a pretty straightforward one, isn't it? I had something sort of similar where someone said, "You wave your arms around a bit too much," and I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And then it's funny, yeah, it is funny that sometimes people will just call out something that you're kind of aware of, but until they put it on paper and then for everyone else to see too, you're like, "Oh, didn't realize."
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one. I like what you're saying around focus on the positives as well. Like, if they've taken the time out to comment as well, it's obviously something that they, unless they're consistently commenting that on every video, but we have to take a moment to kind of say, hey, at least they gave me something.
Exactly. And it's a positive thing, I think, because it's a sign that people are actually engaging with your video. I think if no one at all is engaging with your video, whether it's positive or negative, that's kind of a bad sign. But at least if there's people engaging, like there's people watching it, there's people engaging with it, that's a positive thing. So
the next one for me was always to wait 48 hours or, at least 48 hours before I respond to a negative comment or to a challenging comment. And an example, I think this is a typical one, even when you're doing emails or any kind of public facing thing. As soon as if you're not time pushed to respond immediately, it's always good to give time for yourself to kind of process the comment, think about it a little bit if you need to, and then respond. And, there's been people have said, if this is an email, you can always draft up the email, then wait a couple of days before you send it, and then you'll probably realize, I don't need to say all those things. And also just takes time, gives you time to kind of take the edge off something. I do find if someone comments negatively on a video and it's not my latest video, I'm also a lot cooler about it. Like, I'm like, well, maybe I could have done something better, or that's a good point. But if it's on my latest video, that's a little bit more sensitive to me. So I'm almost giving you a cheat code on how to get me really riled up. It's to give me a negative comment on my latest video. But even if it's 2 or 3 videos back, sort of like I've already moved on. So that's probably one that I would say, if you're a content creator and you get a negative comment, as always, just give time. Look at the comment, process it, let it sort of sit in the back of your head if you need to for a bit, and then come back and comment back. And what I've found each time I've done that, I've either said thanks or good point, we'll take it on notice. And then I've either gotten a like or a response back saying, appreciate all the work you do anyway, or something like that. So
interesting.
I think instead of, going aggressively after people, especially in that kind of situation, doesn't help. And for me, waiting 48 hours helps a lot to kind of to have that kind of response.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I was going to ask you, like, do you always respond to negative comments, or do you just ignore them? It sounds like you respond to some of them. Because I have heard some people say, like other creators say, that you can often almost win someone to your side by the way you respond to a negative comment. Whereas if you just immediately react out of emotion and being a bit hurt and stuff, then you'll probably just lose that person or like create an enemy almost. So yeah, like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think as well, taking note that in a lot of situations, people are interested to see how you react. So
Mm.
everyone else who's also seen that comment. So initially not reacting is, I think, in some of the tips and tricks that we'll also see from some other creators that I'll share a bit later, some of their things were just don't react at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I are both the type of people who we do want to react and we do want to kind of acknowledge. We're not going to completely ignore it, but we just need time to think of what an intelligent reaction is. If I've left it for a really long time and I don't really know what to say, then I'll just say, thanks for watching the video and taking the time to comment, or thanks for watching the
Right.
video.
Yep.
I won't just leave it with a love. You know how you can do the love reaction?
Mm-hmm.
I used to just leave it with that, but now I'm like, I'll still do the reaction. I'll just say, thanks for taking the time to comment, something along those lines, and leave it as that.
Mm.
And then if it's a constructive one, like I think I had a comment recently about, I said in a video, savings rates are like 2 or 3%. And that is relevant at that time of the journey. So a few years ago, interest rates were quite low. So I can make the comment that savings rates are low.
Right.
But since then, interest rates have gone up, and this person's trying to sort of take a stab at that. And I said,
Right.
hey, that's a good point. Didn't see anything around the corner coming on that, or something like that. And I
Right.
think I threw Philip Lowe into the mix as well. I said, both neither me or Phil saw that coming. So, yeah, something simple like that is how I would do it. I don't think I'm necessarily trying to win people over, though. I think I'm more so just trying to react in a way that I would want to, so that someone else who is maybe one of my fans or is,
Mm.
watching my videos, they see and they're like, oh, yep, that's a pretty
Mm.
good response from Sanjee on that.
Nice.
And if the other person is happy with that or not, I'm not as fussed.
That's good. I like that. I think I should start doing that because I tend to just ignore really negative comments and just move on. But I've replied to a handful, and I do, especially if it's more of like a similar to you, like a factual thing that they've pointed out that was wrong, or something that I could acknowledge that was incorrect. Like I'll acknowledge that. But yeah, just saying something like thanks for the comment. That's a really easy, straightforward way to respond. So I might try and do that myself, actually. So the next kind of thing I try and remember when it comes to negative comments is just the fact that I try and remember that what I do obviously isn't perfect and it's open to feedback, but at least I'm having a go and giving it a shot. And I think I heard someone say recently that you'll hardly ever get a negative comment from another content creator, because I think other content creators understand the difficulty and the challenges of actually having a go at content creation. I think it's pretty easy for people to sit back who haven't tried it and just criticize. But I think that feedback, I kind of see that feedback as less valuable in some ways than someone who actually knows what it's like, if that makes sense. So I try and keep that in perspective. I don't, I definitely won't leave a negative comment on other creators' work anymore, because I just know the effort it takes, to actually put something out there.
Yep.
And so I feel like I'm a lot more open to feedback from people they're actually giving it a go and they've got skin in the game, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So yeah, that's something I definitely try and keep in mind.
That's a great one, Nick, because that's often a basic reaction I have is, why don't you make your own video about it then?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a very good point to kind of take away. And yeah, absolutely agree when someone else, we know how much effort is involved in making a video, that if someone
Yeah.
else points something out that is also a content creator, it's always valuable.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very careful to do it. And it's definitely always a case of, oh, I hadn't considered that, or have you considered this, kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is a great way. And it almost gives them another topic to talk about, or gives people space to comment on it as well. So Nick, do you have any more before I switch over to a little reference I found on the interweb? Go ahead.
Mm. Yeah, so I was just thinking, obviously there's, those are some tips to help manage the negativity, but I was thinking, how can you actually stay positive, especially as you, like we're saying, if you're a content creator and you're facing the challenges of content creation. The two quick things I thought of was just interacting with other content creators who understand what it's like to receive
Mm.
negativity and just the struggle of being a content creator. So that's why I appreciate our friendship and ability to have these chats, because we're able to interact with each other and share common experiences, and it makes you feel like you're not alone. I think understanding that all this kind of stuff is normal and that everyone experiences it makes you feel like, okay, it's not all just me, it's everyone experiences negativity, and that's okay. And then I think the other thing was just remembering your goals and why you're creating content in the first place. And so for me, one of my goals is I want to help people. And by and large, I think for every one negative comment, kind of like I was saying at the start, for every one negative comment I get maybe 50 positive comments. So it's pretty
Absolutely.
the vast majority of people who
Yeah.
I'm making the content for seem to enjoy it and leave positive comments. And so, it's not like I'm completely failing in my mission if I just get one or two negative comments here and there. That's just normal and to be expected. So keeping that in perspective, I think, is helpful.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Nick. So I'm going to run through a couple, because we wanted to provide a bit of value as well, just looking at some external resources, what some others have said on this. Because it's actually, when you do sort of Google about it, I mean, yeah, when you're dealing with the head first, you don't really have time to think about it. But when you do sort of take a step back to Google what others have said, it's not a heavily talked about thing. I think a lot of people do look at it from a general social media point of view, how to deal with negativity, but there's not a lot around. If you're an actual content creator, this is how it's going to, this is what you have to deal with, because it's a bit different to your personal Instagram or YouTube channel. But I've got a couple of tips here from Pagan Harrison Brown, and she's a content creator who studies at Charles Sturt University here in Australia, and she had some tips in here. Now, she had 8, but I'll just pick a couple that I thought were quite handy, I guess, for us, and also people more in the specific YouTube or content creation space. So one of them was, don't let negative comments stop you from creating content or changing the type of content you create. It is your content and no one else's. Keep producing what brings you joy and is true to yourself, and you'll find people who will enjoy that content.
Yep.
Which really goes to what you're saying, Nick, around, 1 in 50, 1 in 60 are negative, but so many people are very happy with that. And it's funny how quickly we forget about the positive people.
Yep.
And focus on the negative ones. But I thought that was a great one from her. And one of her other ones was, never take comments personally. People say whatever they want to make themselves feel better. It says more about who they are as a person, which I thought, okay, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yep.
And I've got some from Thomas Strider. Maybe we can reflect a bit on this, because he had a different spin on it. And this is from thomasstrider.com, and he's got a newsletter out there, which is quite handy as well, where he says, there are some positives of getting negative comments. These are, your reach is expanding, you're stopping their scroll, and your content is invoking emotion. So he had a slightly different spin to it, but I do like that one around, your reach is expanding and you're stopping their scroll.
Yep. It's I think I've heard people say, kind of on the topic of being controversial, but not controversial for the sake of being controversial, but having a stand on something or having an opinion and just sticking with it. That's you putting yourself out there. I think people are drawn to that because it's authentic, and also, kind of like we were saying before, if no one's talking about your content, then it's probably not that interesting. Whereas, even if it is a little bit controversial, or if you have an opinion on something that other people disagree with, at least there's conversation around it, and you're creating a discussion. I think that's a positive. That's always a positive thing. So
good. All right. Well, there we go. Now we are, we're relatively small content creators, so it'll be interesting to see if we revisit this topic a year from now, where we'll be, if we have any additional tips. They seem pretty timeless though, but I'm looking forward to seeing, as our content grows and reach grows, how else we have to deal with it. Luckily, no one tries to find us in person and get angry at us. So that's probably the next level, is when people see you out in public and start yelling at you. Hopefully not, but potentially can happen.
Yeah.
So, Nick, where can people find you on the internet these days?
I am on YouTube, Nick Kendall, and then Instagram at Nick Kendall _. I've got a bit of behind the scenes stuff on there, on my stories mainly, and then nickkendall.com.au. How about you, Sanjee?
Fantastic. Yes, I'm Sanjee Sen on YouTube, Sanjee_investing on Instagram. I actually have to consider if I can change that. I'm not going to say to what, just in case someone tries to steal it. But I wonder, once you get the blue tick, if you can change your handle, we'll have to have a look at that. And my website is sanjeesen.com. So we'll see you in the next video or episode. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now.